Hello, welcome back. I have a quick question before we get started. Have you ever built a Power Query calculation, gotten it to work perfectly, and then had someone walk over and say to you, hey, the tax rate just changed? And then you'd have to go back into Power Query, open the advanced editor, find the number buried into the M code and change it manually, and then hit refresh once you get back into Excel. So right over here, this is the hard-coded M code that you would see. You would specifically have to go back into your query in Power Query, find this code, and then update it with the new tax rate. So by the end of this video, that number is going to be gone. And the person who needs to change the tax rate, well, they'll be able to do it themselves in the cell over here without ever touching Power Query. So this is about hard coding versus building a parameter function in Power Query. So it's automatic, it's dynamic. So right now, I already have the Power Query set up. So if I hit refresh, okay, go up to data, and then I'm just going to hit refresh all because I have multiple queries in this book. And you'll see that hitting refresh, it will not update anything here because the code is still hard-coded. So if I come to this cell right here and change it to 600, okay, of course it changes it here because these are formula based right here. They're not connected to Power Query. But if I go ahead and right click on my query and click refresh, it won't update anything because of the fact that this order amount and tax rate is hard coded into Power Query. So I'm going to go into Power Query right now, go to data, get data, and launch Power Query Editor. And I already have all these queries set up, so we'll walk through the code itself. So right here, we have the hard-coded query itself, which is what you just saw. So click on Home, Advanced Editor, and you'll see this is the hard-coded rate and hard-coded order amount. So if you set it up this way, you would always have to go into Power Query to make changes, and we don't want to do that. So we want to set up a parameter where the user changes the value in Excel, click refresh, and it'll automatically update the numbers for us. So let's go back to Excel, okay? And let's close out of here. Okay, so what I mean by is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to show you all the code that you see here. And this is what is actually built within Power Query. So we're going to create a parameter function within Power Query, which is what you see here. Okay, this is the actual M code. So basically what this is, parameter name as text. This is a syntax to create a parameter. And what this means is that this gets run only when it gets called by your queries. It doesn't get run any other time. A normal query is going to run automatically all the time when you click on refresh because of the fact that it doesn't have a parameter attached to it. So basically what this means is I'm going to pass in a value into this function, and it's going to be a text value. And then down in the code here, you could see right here, parameter name gets passed. So right here, it evaluates whatever this value here is. And you'll see how this works in a second. So basically what this code does is it executes the Excel.current workbook, okay? Now, what does this statement return? Well, if we go over to the right here, it returns a table for us. We got a content column and a name column. And what the content column returns is Power Query looks into your Excel file, returns things like your named ranges or even table names that you set up as an Excel table and you name them specifically, or even the default name. And that's what gets returned here. And the content column is actually a table. And if you click on this here in Power Query, it expands that table. Okay. And in other words, it returns all the rows and all the columns in this nested table right here. So that's what Excel.current workbook returns. Now let's go on to the next line of code, which is basically table.select rows. And you have a number of different parameters that go into this function right here. So what this does is if we go down here, this is what it does down here, and this is what gets returned. So select rows, you have to pass in a table. So we just created a table through here, the Excel.current workbook. And this is the table that we're passing it over here on the right. So that's number one. And number two is we need to pass it. Basically, we want to pass it a filter, and that's what select rows does. It's a filter, basically. So what each, and then the name, in square brackets, basically, we're going to be filtering this table over here on the right based upon the value that we send this parameter function. And it's going to look over in the name column, which is right here, and whatever name that we pass it, it's going to filter down to that particular row and return a row for us, a matching row. So that's what this does. For example, we passed in the tax rate value. So what it does right here, goes over here. Let's find something with tax rate. Again, I'm not doing any error type checking at this point, but let's just say that this is valid, and it will find a valid row here. Finds tax rate and returns this another table right here. So now we have a name column again, and we still have the content column. So that's what this line of code does. Now what we need to do is we need to extract the value of the tax rate from this nested table over here. And so if we do matching, this is another line of code right here, matching row and curly brackets 0, square brackets content, and so forth. And I'll explain that over here in the bottom right. So what matching row is basically this table right here, which is what we got right over here in the bottom left. And that's the table that we're looking at. The next 0 in the curly brackets just simply means give me the first row of this table. So basically this is the table that we're looking at, and we want to access the first row. For simplicity, this table only has one row. So 0 means the first row. 0, the reason why we put 0 is because it's zero-based indexing, meaning 0 is row 1, 1 is row 2, and so forth. Okay? So now the next line of code is content in square brackets. So what this means is from this row over here, give me the value in the content column. So this is the content column here. And the value in that is right now the content column contains a table. Okay. So our next line here, code here is another 0 with curly brackets. Now what this one does is give me the first row in that inner table. Well, if in Power Query, if we expand this, it's going to show all the columns in this nested table, and it'll expand to all the rows. Now, again, this nested table here gives me the first, right here, gives me this value right here. So this inner table right here consists of column 1 and then and a value, okay? And that value then, okay, gets returned from over here, and it gets returned to the extracted value variable, and it returns 0.08. So because we passed in the tax rate, it extracts the value over here. Now let me explain what's over here on the left hand side. I created name ranges. So what we see here over here on the right, what Excel current workbook did, I have no Excel tables in here. I only have name ranges, which is what's over here. So that's what we got. We got discount. We got a list price over here. We got the order amount. We got the region, and we got the tax rate. Those are all name ranges. Now, how do we set up a name range? Simple. Select your cell or a range of cells. Go up to this name box up here in the upper left-hand corner and call it whatever that you want. Okay? This case, I called it tax rate. So again, we come back over here to the right. This is what gets returned because Excel will return a name range. And that's what these names are here. You could also create a name range if you go up to formulas and then name manager, and then you can click on new, or you could edit your existing name ranges. And that's what we have here, all these name ranges. So let's click on close. So that's the key to a name range and setting up a parameter within Excel. So hopefully you got the grasp of the idea of this reusable code that we have here. Now let's see what it does in action. So basically, let's say I want to return the value west, which is over here. And so what I would then do is I would call that function, I would call this function and pass it the value of our named range, which I called region. So in other words, this small little code says, okay, let's call this function get parameter. Let's pass in a value called region, okay? It returns that value over here. And then what Excel does in the background, it runs through this code again. It runs through this code again. It looks for the value of region over here. And it goes through this process. This is the code. This is step 1, step 2, and step 3. And then this is the end result over here. So we do the same thing for, let's say we want to return the discounted price. So I set up a query in Power Query, discounted price. Again, we're going to be passing in the named range of list price. We call it again. We get the discount, the value that's in the cell over here. Okay. And then let's go back over here. And then we make some calculations. Once it's done with these calculations, going through the parameter function and getting the value from the cell in Excel, which is the name range, we got a final price. So again, this value right here, 170, is based upon the list price of 200 times the discount, which is 15. Let's bring up the calculator here. Let's bring up this second. Second, I'll bring it up. Okay, give me a second. Okay, we got the calculator up here finally. Sorry for the pause on that. But basically, the list price is going to be 200 times the discount rate, which is 0.15, and that equals to $30. And then let's go over to the next discounted price. So the calculation is now the list price was 200 minus the discount is going to get 170. Now let's go over here. Let's change the rate to like say 0.20. Okay. Now when I hit refresh, this number is going to change over here. Let's right click, click on refresh. And so it changes to 160 because we took 0.20 times 200, which is $40. $40 from 200 is 160. So this is the power behind setting up parameters that you could automatically update your spreadsheets using Power Query. Again, the tax amount query will go into Power Query again, and I'll show you all this. But basically, right now it returns 540 because it's grabbing the order amount, which is 500. The tax rate is set at 0.8, so 0.8 times order amount of 500, which is $40, and then we add that to the order amount. That's how we come up with 540. And if you're looking at this number dot from, basically we want to make sure this is some type of error checking here. We want to make sure that whatever gets passed in the Power Query, it is an actual number, not a text value. So we want to do that, and this is just a check to make sure that we convert whatever we pass in is going to be an actual number once it gets returned here. So that's what that is. So again, let's now go into Power Query, get data, query, launch Power Query editor. So this is the function right here. If I click on that, let's click on Advanced Editor, and I enter in the syntax or the parameter function itself. And that's all I did was enter it in there, click done, and it does that. Now, what I did for the other queries where we actually pass in, the tax rate or the region or anything else, I also created separate queries in here. Let's say, just as example, dynamic tax. So in order to do that, I first click on Home, and then come over here to the right, New Source, Other Sources, and I create a blank query. Once I create a blank query, then I go up to the Advanced Editor and I enter in the code, the M code for that. And then of course I could rename it over here on the right, called Dynamic Tax. And then whenever I get done with all my queries over here, I do a close and load. And I already did this, so basically I did a close and load, and it's going to be to a table. So let's get out of here. And again, I want to thank you very much for stopping by today. Hopefully this gave you an idea on how you could create a parameter query in Power Query, and how you could dynamically make changes in your Excel file, pass those values to this parameter function in Power Query, and return new results for yourself. Again, I want to thank you for stopping by. You have a great day. And as always, please like and share this video. And also, please subscribe to this channel. Thanks again. You have a great day. And I'll catch you on the next one.